right, folks, welcome into another episode of I've Got a Theory with Henish. My special guest today is Tim Yates. He's a businessman, entrepreneur, real estate, small business owner, and is not ashamed to have a drink in the morning because it's 9 a.m.
Breakfast of champions, my friend.
That's how you know. You know, there's not theory. There's no theory that says that alcohol can't kill coronavirus.
That's true.
So
That's
unless
true.
you disprove it.
I mean, I'm just saying, so far, knock on wood, we all seem healthy. And I know you and I like to have our daily drinks together, so virtually. So I think we're both looking healthy and I think we're fine. So I think it might be true.
I think that the case study is probably bigger than just the two of us.
So, yes, I agree.
Unfortunately, I'm still Rona free, so our theory is holding water. In this case, Scotch.
Anyway.
That was an alcohol-related cough, not.
Yes, it was. It was.
Well, excellent. So, Tim.
Yes.
I'm really excited to hear your theory because we've brainstormed a couple, but I think you've probably got a good one in the last couple of days. Tell us what you got. I'm excited.
Well, as you know, I'm a musician. I love music. I'm wearing my Motley Crue shirt here, and having my whiskey. So I think the key to a long, healthy life is plenty of this kind of music with plenty of this and a few other things. And so my theory is this. I'm going to read off some names to you, Henish, and I want you to tell me what these people have, what's similar about them and what makes them different, okay? So I'm going to read off some names for you. Okay, so Chris Cornell, Axl Rose, Scott Weiland, Nikki Sixx, Kurt Cobain, Slash, Lane Staley, Tommy Lee, Chester Bennington, Bret Michaels, Mike Starr, Ozzy Osbourne.
Yeah, there's the frontman for some of the biggest rock bands in history.
Yes, that's very, very true.
Okay.
Now, what makes them different, though?
What makes them different? I mean, they're all white guys. They all are unique musically to an extent. They probably have inspired each other to an extent as well. I don't know. You tell me. What's more unique about them?
Half of that list is dead.
Okay.
Okay. So the common theme between the lists of names is one group comes from the 90s grunge scene and one really came to fame in the 80s hair metal scene. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you were to think back, I'm a little old. Well, you're not pretty close in age. So here's the deal. Who would have ever thought, though, back in the 80s when I was in high school listening to, the likes of Ozzy Osbourne, Metallica, Motley Crue, Def Leppard, just keeps going on and on and on, that those guys would still be around rocking and partying today versus everybody that was in the 90s grunge scene that were, like you mentioned, Chris Cornell, Kurt Cobain, Lane Staley, Alice in Chains, all those guys, they would all be dead. So my theory is this. If you were a 90s rock star in the grunge era, you wrote very dark, sad music. You were actually a sad rock star. You didn't embrace the rock star lifestyle. In the 80s, everybody embraced being a rock star. I mean, you're constantly partying. You got women everywhere. You're just having a good time. You're writing power ballads.
Yep.
You're writing about relationships and fun and partying. And then in the 90s, everybody started writing music about real serious things.
Sure.
So my feeling is that if you want to live a long, healthy, happy life, you got to write, number one, power ballads, and you got to be comfortable snorting cocaine off the behind of a hot chick.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that, but so it's probably less so their drug use and their extracurriculars, and more so potentially their mindset.
Yes,
that's what you're getting.
I would even argue that the band members from the 80s partied a lot harder and did a lot more drugs than the 90s grunge era guys.
I saw something recently. It was Ozzy Osbourne holding up a sign that says, "Stay at home for COVID. I've been eating bats before COVID."
Yes. And if any viewer out there wants to get a little taste of what the debauchery of the 80s was like, just watch the Motley Crue thing on Netflix called The Dirt. It's not for the children or faint of heart. So if you're gonna watch it, don't watch it with the family. It's got some pretty intense scenes, but it's based on their book that they wrote, but it's true. The 80s rock star lifestyle embraced it.
Yeah.
They didn't take it serious. They didn't take life too serious. I mean, I believe it's the mindset, like you said, because they all partied, but I would argue the 80s bands partied so much harder, did so many more drugs, but they're still alive and touring. You know, if it wasn't for COVID, you know, Motley Crue's touring with Def Leppard and Poison this summer.
Wow.
And so the other bands from the 90s have all replacement people. In fact, Stone Temple Pilots, their last two lead singers have both died. You know, Scott Weiland was the original, and then Chester Bennington, who was the singer of Linkin Park, they're both dead.
And it's typically due to overdose, right? It's something kind of
Yeah.
self-destructive where they were just going too hard. And finally, even with the insane tolerances that you hear these people have, it was still too much, right? They were kind of chasing something or trying to mask their sadness or get to the next level of poetry so they can write something unique. You know, I just finished the Jim Morrison book recently, and you hear about how much he went through. But you know, he also was more similar to the grunge era, kind of sad, somber music, as opposed to let's party and dance on top of a car.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I do believe most artists, really talented people, are tortured souls. You know, if you look at, you know, Jim Morrison, you look at Prince, you look at, you know, people that are Michael Jackson, that were unbelievable talents. But I do believe they're also tortured souls. You know, and I'm sure there's an element of mental illness and other things that come into play. But to keep this topic kind of light and fluffy, it really is about, you look at those two groups and you realize that, hey, the 80s guys did it right. They enjoyed it. When the 90s grunge era came out, and I loved it, I loved all the music, but they were the pendulum swung directly to the left now, and it wasn't acceptable now to party that way. So they felt they had to carry this persona of being like, hey, I don't want to be a rock star, but I am, and it's sad, and I hate it, and I'm going to continue to, you know, be down about it. And I do think it was the mindset that took a toll on them, and ultimately led to destructive ways that led to their death.
yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, so I mean, so what's our takeaway? So what's our takeaway from this theory is that, you know, if you're a musician, if you could shift towards a funner topic, you probably can have a longer life. That's kind
Yeah,
of the
I mean,
theory.
you should. The theory is, if you're going to write music, write power ballads based on your girlfriend, your love, you know, happiness, cars, you know, things that are really deep and meaningful. People could say that's shallow, but you know what? We all need an escape. And I think too, this applies to our life. You know, as real estate professionals, we can get so worked up over things that really don't mean anything. And if you just really try to create the right mindset, I've been in and out of this industry for over 23 years, and I know a lot of people that have done very well, but they burned out early because they just didn't know how to just kind of roll with it. And it is all about mindset. You got to understand that one day you're down, the next day you're up. So just roll with it. Enjoy the ride is what I would say. Enjoy the ride. Don't take life too seriously because it's not permanent, my friend.
Right. And it's also probably about a balance, right? You can't just
Yes.
go hard all day long. You got to have that balance of having a little bit of fun, because as much as, you know, some people think that musicians just were born with this talent and they have this gift, but that's not necessarily true, right? They might have had some aspect of that, but they've put in thousands of hours of practice. Like when you hear and read about how much effort the Beatles put in, working jobs 7-8 hours a night every night for
Yeah.
months on end in Germany before they even got you know, any money out of it. You're like, these guys grinded. You know, they didn't just become successful. They didn't just become the Beatles. They didn't just become Motley Crue. They probably spent thousands of hours in their garage in high school, blasting away, pissing off all the neighbors before someone's like, I would pay money to see them.
And that's interesting too. Same with real estate. People get their real estate license. They look at somebody that's already at the top of their game and they think, oh, that doesn't seem that hard. I could do that.
Right.
And then they realize, oh my gosh, that took years and years and years of hard work, blood, sweat, and tears, sacrifice, dedication, a lot of failures to get to that point. And to me, it's about longevity. Do you have the ability to stay with it and to keep pushing through? I've seen too many people, you know, quit right at the end when they just kept pushing through. And if they'd have said, man, if I would have stayed in real estate, where would I be now?
Yeah.
And this is an industry too. Thankfully, we don't have to spend a lot of money to stay in this business. We have a very low startup costs, and we don't have to risk too much to reap a lot of rewards. So to me, I think it's the same philosophy. It's a mindset thing. Enjoy the ride, enjoy your time, and just, you know, roll with it.
Yeah. It's a good theory. It's a good, you know, life lesson in general, right? Is just to try to make the best of it. And if you focus that, you know, we hear this in the Keller Williams guidebooks of how to do work. What you focus on expands. So if you're focusing on sad stuff and the bad stuff, that'll probably expand in your life, right? But if you focus on the positives and giving and caring and energy, those are the things that seem to expand, and that's what I've been trying to take to heart as well. I know that's one of the key lessons that you teach, because you're a prolific reader as well, right? You've crushed a lot of
Yes.
books, and pretty much every
No.
book kind of comes down to the same point. Whether you're reading Think and Grow Rich from 100 years ago, right, or anything more modern today from any of the modern gurus, it is a lot about how you spend your time and what you're thinking about, and maybe spend a few minutes doing some meditation to have some mantras in your head that can reinforce your day's goals.
Absolutely. And you think about the music that the 80s bands wrote, again, when they wrote the music, it came from a place of just lighthearted fun, and people again could say, oh, it's shallow, but who cares? It was fun. They
Right.
enjoyed it. They don't apologize for it, nor should
It
they.
was
So
it was music to celebrate to. It wasn't
it
music
was,
to listen into in your bed and cry
yeah,
in a pillow.
and think and to get in, really deep about life. This was about, so when they performed that music too, it came out of them. That their shows were that way. It was about fun and excitement. Versus the other, the 90s grunge era bands, they wrote those dark songs, they performed those dark songs. So it created that whole message. So they never had an escape from the darkness, in my opinion.
And I think there was some benefit to that as well for people that may have been more balanced, to say that, okay, I'm having a bad day, I'm going to listen to this band because they get me, they understand my feelings, right?
Yep.
But ideally, you're able to pop out of that funk and listen to something fun, because you don't want to just have that overtake your life with the sadness.
It's just like if you're having a bad day, don't go watch a serious movie that's going to drag you down. I like myself, I'm going to watch a comedy. I'm going to watch something that's going to lift me up and make me laugh a
Make you
little bit,
laugh. It's the
and
best
escape.
medicine.
And escape. Just like, so again, message to all you musicians out there. If you want to live a long, healthy, happy life, write fun, cheesy pop power ballads and enjoy the success and enjoy the run.
Yeah, it's yeah. I listen to a lot of music currently, and it's popped up. And this is kind of funny, and I'm sure you've potentially seen this, and a lot of people have. But the Tiger King now has its own streaming station, and he has a lot of songs that are out. And he's kind of country style, but he's not bad. You heard a little bit during the show. He's not bad,
Yeah.
and it's kind of the one I was just listening to on the way in was talking about like Pretty Women, which I don't think he's into women, but either way, it was just funny that he was like, Pretty women love him, and ugly girls dream about him was like the chorus. But it's still kind of like a country rock album at that point, because he's rocking about stuff that other people would potentially sing along with him, even though we know he's had 1 to 2 husbands at a time.
I think that's funny you brought that up, because I think people, again, when they listen to the music, they're like, wow, this isn't bad at all. In fact, it's like, this is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
So I'm not afraid to admit, hey, Joe Exotic's got some good songs.
Well, I don't know when he's getting out at 78 years old, but
Yeah.
I don't. Maybe he could do Zoom concerts from prison. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe that might be the future. I think that's the future for a lot of things, so we'll see. We might see a lot more Zoom concerts coming up in our lifetime.
That's true. Well, Tim, I appreciate you sharing your theory. I think it was a good one. That was awesome to hear. So hopefully we'll get you back on the show sometime in the future, because I know we've got a lot of things that we talk about. So thank you again for joining us on I've Got a Theory. Please like, comment, and subscribe. I'd love to hear what other people think about music and how that potentially affects your lifespan.
Awesome. Thank you, my friend.